Craving your next action-packed adventure? Audible delivers thrills of every kind on your command, like Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, where a lone astronaut must save humanity from extinction, narrated with stunning intensity by Ray Porter. From electrifying suspense and daring quest to spine-tingling horror and romance in far-off realms, unleash your adventurous side with gripping titles that'll keep you guessing. Discover exclusive Audible originals, hotly anticipated new releases, and must-listen bestsellers that hook you from the first minute. Because Audible knows there's no greater thrill than the one that speaks to you. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat. Start your free 30-day trial at audible.com/WonderyUS. That's audible.com/WonderyUS.
Find yourself looking for a new job or change in career? Monster.com is here to help. We are not only here to bring you job postings, but also AI interview prep and salary tools, expert career advice, and top-notch resume services. We've got everything you need to land your perfect job fit. Discover the magic of finding the ideal job with Monster.com. Your future starts now. Visit Monster.com today. Your next job opportunity is just a click away.
Edit audio.
Hey friends, Robin here. In honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, we're sharing this episode with Matt. Now, it's all about struggles with depression and the kind of unhealthy habits that we sometimes pick up when we're not feeling great. Now, there's a lot going on in the world right now, and this conversation it's absolutely critical. I know this because this is one of our most listened to episodes of all time. So take a listen, friends, but more importantly, take care of yourselves. Only way to go is up. Hello, everyone. I'm Robin Hopkins, and this is Well Adjusting, where I talk to people about life stuff, but not in an NPR way. It's more like we're at the bar, having cocktails, getting into your business sort of way.
It's giving drunk NPR.
Oh, and producer Steph is here too.
Hello.
Today we chat, well, when feelings of depression keep coming back. Hi, friends. Another lovely day, another Well Adjusting. And today we're going to be chatting with author, teacher, dad, Matt Bindig. He reached out and he wanted to share about his journey facing recurring depression and facing all those not so healthy behaviors that we turn to, like maybe drinking when we're struggling. This is a really fantastic and brave conversation. And Matt drops all kinds of literary references that producer Steph and I, we just kind of pretend to know what he's talking about. Oh, and one other thing before we get into this interview, don't forget we're always looking for new guests, especially now that we're in season forever. So if you've got a problem that you want to pick apart with us, hit us up at hello@editaud.io, or you can DM me on any of those social platforms at RealRobHops. Okay, now let's get to Matt.
Well, hi, I'm Matt, and I'm here today just because I was hoping to talk about not only my present state of being and how I got to be where I am when it comes to wrestling with some long-term depression issues, but also just engage the conversation about humanity collectively in that department, and maybe even more specifically, men of a certain age, meaning in the 40s. I have really seen that is a growing problem. People tend to be very ill-equipped to manage it, and so they manage it in unhealthy ways, whether that be alcohol or drugs or, very surfacey connections with people. And when I sat down to write my memoir, part of what I wanted to do was sort of wrestle with that. Mm-hmm. In the summer of 2015, my wife was really struggling with the loss of her mom. We had 3 little kids. I had to pick up a whole bunch of different side gigs just to kind of make a middle-class lifestyle work. I was working as an adjunct professor at a community college. I was working as a college essay consultant, and I was teaching a couple of advanced placement courses at the high school that I was teaching at, picking up all sorts of side gigs. There was just a lot in the stew.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It just started to wear on me because the things that had previously been sort of healthy outlets like exercise and, time to reconnect with people I cared about were really in short supply. And I started feeling kind of the walls closing in on me, and things that I previously had really enjoyed started feeling very toxic. And now, so you add to that the toxicity of the political climate as Trump was ramping up for his first run of things. And that was like a daily part of everyone's experience. You know, you open up your phone and the news is screaming at you. And so it's just pervasive negativity. You know, I'll never forget the day after the election, I had stayed up really late. And at some point it had become clear that like, okay, this is going to go this way. And so
I think we all remember that moment, by the way.
Yeah.
I think every one of us had a drink.
Yeah.
There was quiet.
Yeah, that was it. So some IPAs and I made our way through the rest of the evening.
Yeah.
And then I had to be at school, you know, at 7 a.m. And I walked in and there were a handful of kids waiting in front of my door, all of them weeping. And these were LGBTQ kids. And I sort of ushered them in. And I was like, what's going on, guys? And they were like, what's going to happen to us was their answer. So anyway, that was just like every day intensity. And at some point, you know, I was like, man, this just cloud came over everything. And eventually it got really bad. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to sort of function in a normal way. And so I secured...
Well, you probably had no space to like ever decompress because you're working 3 different jobs at the same time and you have 3 young kids.
Right.
So there's it's just like a relentless attack coming at you.
Right. So eventually I secured a leave from work, took a couple of months off, started going to therapy, worked through that as best I could, and then eventually dipped my toes back in. But there was still this like realization that every once in a while, you have to get away from all of that. I have always found, you know, reconnecting to the natural world to be a really important thing to do. And our world just doesn't really allow that on a daily basis, at least for most people. So we took this trip in the summer of 2019, 3 weeks, circling through 6 national parks. Our kids were 13, 10, and 7. And it seemed like, you know, before you know it, they're going to be teenagers who don't want to spend any time with us at all. So trying to, you know.
That's your moment.
Yeah. So we were out there, and as I was journaling, I'm like, whoa, I've got some space to kind of think a little bit about some of this other stuff. It wasn't like every day I was in this great Zen state, but I was sleeping on the ground in a campground outside of the Grand Canyon, or, you know, walking through Yosemite. You see stuff and think stuff that you otherwise don't.
Yeah.
And so when we came back, all of a sudden it was like, you know, the world comes flying back in, and then COVID hit. I can't believe that was real life.
I know. I feel the same way about Donald Trump as president. I can't believe either of those things were real life. You're
and
just
they
like,
both
are we in
happened
the
at
upside
same
down?
Freaking time.
Yeah.
That summer I was like, okay, I got to start putting some of this down. And so the book really became a way of meditating on this sort of middle life period that I was going through, with the framework of the trip kind of being the invitation to explore parenting and marriage and depression and, you know, struggling with like teetering on like, hey, am I addicted to alcohol? Is alcohol just this thing that I have a healthy relationship with? How do I manage that whole thing? And just asking those questions publicly, because I really feel like people don't.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
And I believe that especially during COVID, many people who weren't drinkers were like, I think I might be drinking too much.
Yeah.
Even coming out of COVID, I think that like if there's a depression scale, like maybe you want to hover around a 3 as a country, but I feel like we're idling at a 6 or a 7. You know, I think everybody is a little more, you know, in it.
Yeah. And I think there's this pervasive fear too. I think that's one of the reasons why people are so terrified and anxious about this upcoming election, because it's like, okay, we're coming right back to the situation where it was before, you know, and we've got these brewing crises around the world. And the last time this guy was driving the car, it was not a safe trip, you know, and
it felt like we were going a little too fast.
Yeah.
And I didn't have my seatbelt on and the windows were open.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Plus the guy was like catcalling people as he drove by, you know, like
exactly.
It was not a good situation. So, yeah, it's a scary, unsettled time for sure.
Well, so like that's a really great lead up to what we're talking about. So it's like, and if I don't want to put words in your mouth, so tell me if I'm getting this wrong, but like you sense it, you feel it, like, okay, I think I'm depressed and maybe I'm self-medicating a little bit. And you're like, I know these things work for me. So we're going in the woods, and you take the family and you're freeze drying food. And then you come back and you're like, yeah, I'm writing about it, and you're processing it, and you've got a therapist, but the hits just keep coming. And then you're in a place where it's like, how do I, on an ongoing basis, clear depression? Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that what it takes to be healthy isn't a secret. Take care of yourself physically, create space mentally, do the things that bring meaning into your life. But the world is not set up that way. And, I can't wake up some morning and just, drive to the redwoods.
No.
So the connections and the groundedness I felt while we were on that trip felt like they would be really sustaining. And
yeah,
it's a challenge to sustain those things.
Well, it's like when you do like a self-help workshop and you go for the weekend and you're infused, you come back and then your life is waiting for you.
Right.
So it's like, it's helpful to get like a jump on something, but it's not the day to day. Like those are two different things.
Right. And so what I think a lot of people do is they'll say, all right, I'll hit the liquor store on the way home. Wine will give me a break from these feelings for these next 5 hours, and the weekend I'll take care of it. And then there are other people who, that scene from Oh Brother, We're Out There, where like the guys are in the woods and the one guy, Delmer, like offers George Clooney part of his gopher that they're cooking on a spit over the fire. And he's like, gopher? And George Clooney's like, nah, that's going to wake up my appetite without bedding it down. And I think there are some people who are like, I'm not going to take care of myself at all because it won't be enough. So I'm not going to bother waking up my appetite because I won't be able to bed it down. Just make it worse. So I'll just kind of live in the suck. And, I just don't think that is sustainable.
Well, and we do have this real, not everyone, but there's a very large portion of the country that believes like just pick yourself up by your bootstraps without recognizing like what barricades are in front of you.
Right.
People have barricades to financial security, to education, but also we don't talk about that same thing with depression. Like there are things in the way if like maybe you're more prone to depression, or maybe you're at I am in either perimenopause or maybe like I'm on the train to menopause. At this point, I'm not sure because no one has actually said, but there's hormones that are definitely affecting my moods, and no one talks about it. And you're just kind of like, I just feel sort of sad a lot of days. And then I'm like, well, I don't know why. And then I don't know what to do with it. So it's like you're not alone. There's many of us that are in that space.
Yeah. And that's such a concerning thing to manage because you start feeling like you're going crazy, when you don't have full physical control of your mental state. As growing up, I bought into that bootstrap thing. And to some degree,
yeah, me too.
I really do because as an athlete or as a guy in particular, it was just sort of like drilled into you that, you can tough things out.
Yeah.
But I just think that, when stuff is happening to you physically and mentally, and you don't feel equipped to deal with it, you have to deal with it. If you don't deal with it, then, you're not going to be able to move forward in any sort of meaningful way. And so this, pull yourself up by the bootstrap, I think is stupidly dismissive.
Right.
While I appreciate the sentiment of it, you don't look at a person whose chemical, biology is responding in a certain way and say, hey, suck it up. It's not that easy.
I think we're only starting to recognize the chemical side, and only some of us are recognizing that. But we talked a little bit about like the big things that you can do, like get reconnected. Oftentimes we know the big things, and sometimes it's hard to do the big things because you're just like, I'm feeling depressed and I know what it might take, but that feels too insurmountable. So like, how are you, like now that you are back in your real life, and like you said, like we're back in the exact same election cycle that we were in 4 years ago, where we know like all the signs are there that like it's not going to get better in terms of the things that are said each day that are insane or not true or whatever. So how are you looking at your day to day? Because like you said, the world is not set up for you to just pop out to Jackson Hole for the weekend. So like, how are you bringing it in on the day to day for yourself? Or is that part of your struggle?
That's hugely part of my struggle. And I think the answer is really unsatisfying, and that it is an accumulation of pieces of peace. Let me go back. I think the world tells us all the time that things are either all or nothing. I mean, we exist in this really polarized world where you're either, a red state or a blue state. You're either this or that. And so the messages we receive from the world are that murky middle isn't acceptable. You have to pick a side. And so
you gotta fix it, I think, is part of the message too. Like, it's not okay to be broken.
Right. And so when that is a huge hurdle, I think, to finding any sort of peace or connectedness in the world, that sort of all or nothing thinking. I call it finish line thinking. Like, I got to get to this finish line. If I can go to the redwoods, I'll find peace. It's just super toxic because, when you live that way, you can never attain it. The goalpost is always being moved. So, to your question of how do I find it, to varying degrees of success, the morning walk when the moon is out, the reconnection with a friend in a meaningful way. But even when I'm saying those things, there's part of me that's like, that's bullshit. You're not trying hard enough, because like
you could do better.
Little
you could do more.
Pieces of Zen, not a complete puzzle make, So there's always this like, man, I'm just settling for just kind of getting by. Yeah. So it is a battle. It is a constant battle to find that peace.
I think we're talking like very generally about depression, and what might be helpful is, if you're comfortable talking about it, is hearing how it affects your like everyday life. Like what is happening in your life that you're noticing this is showing up. And I'm sure to you it feels like it's showing up all the time, but I think it could be helpful for me to understand that.
Okay. Well, I'll go back to the moment where I was my kind of oh shit moment where I'm like, this is for real. My daughter had a dance recital. And there are all these cute kids like doing their thing that they practice. And I'm sitting with one of my best friends from growing up. My mom and dad are there. And this friend of ours had passed away, and her daughter was in the show, and she and her daughter had connected through dance. So it was like legitimately Hallmark movie good moment, where like the cheesy music starts playing and you're supposed to be feeling really good. And you're like, this is what it's all about, and you reach over and grab your wife's hand or whatever. And it was like someone had pulled this black curtain in front of that experience for me. And I was just like, holy shit, there is something wrong. There is something wrong if in this moment I can't feel happy. And that is when I was like, either I'm really broken or I need to figure out how to not feel this way anymore. So, that was sitting down and having the guts to be honest with a therapist about stuff that's going on. And like, it takes me a long time to trust people. And, that's a super complicated thing. That's maybe another episode, but so I guess like that was when I started to realize like when things that genuinely bring you joy feel shrouded with something, when you can't experience those authentic moments, then there's a problem. So like if you're short with your kids for no reason at all, if you can't feel like you connect with your spouse, even though this is like the person that you love. Yeah, there's like the co-management crap that comes with like raising a family. That's just natural. But like, if there can't be these moments where every once in a while you see that person with like wedding day eyes, like there's issues. And so, as a teacher, I genuinely care about my job. I got a sign on my classroom door that says, "You are the hope of the world." I really genuinely believe that. But being a teacher is also a huge pain in the ass sometimes. And so like,
I mean, like, God bless you for real.
Yeah.
Like any teacher of my kids, I'm like, you deserve a bonus.
Well, thanks. So when you can't see the "you are the hope of the world" stuff and you only see the pain in the ass stuff, then there's a problem. And so that's like your warning sign. But what's super hard about the warning signs is the world can be screaming warning, warning at you, but you're so in the soup of just trying to get through that it becomes really challenging to find a way to sort of like address the warning signs before they become a crisis. And that's where I think friends of mine who are drinkers, or friends of mine who like totally dissociate from other people in the name of like, I just got to put my head down. Everybody knows, like, don't drink too much, have meaningful connections, do the things that you care about. Like, everybody knows the answer to those things, but actually like executing the game plan of those answers becomes really challenging when the world is screaming at you all the time.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for sharing that. I think everyone can relate to like feeling numb or feeling sad or feeling like you're not having the right emotion in a situation, like feeling like, oh, this is something I normally would be happy about, but right now I'm feeling nothing, or like icky about it, or depressed, or whatever. But like, I think what you're describing is like clinical depression, chronic depression, something that like is interfering with how you are consistently and ongoingly approaching the world and your relationships, and getting in the way of things from what it
That's
sounds.
definitely true.
Okay.
Yeah. And here's the other hurdle. I would say that maybe 70% of people who know me, maybe even higher, would never think that these things are true of me. They'd be like, he's got his shit together, like he's got a family, he's doing this, he's doing that. And
he's an author,
right?
All the things.
Yeah, and you're not gonna like sit down with your friends, and be like, "Hey, look, I'm really going through this dark time," but you need to, you need to do that. So that's also.
Did you use the book to do that, by the way, or did you sit down and tell your friends before the book was coming out?
The book was 100% an opportunity to say, "Hey, listen, this isn't just you who's feeling this way, world. Like I too feel this way." And when I sat down to write, I just put a sticky note on the side of the computer that was like, be honest, write the type of book you want to read and say it any damn way you please.
So like that was a coping strategy for you, and it was something that was really helpful. But like much like the Redwood Forest, you can't write a book every day. So like, what do you put in place in your life on the day to day to like, especially if it's a chronic issue, to stave it off or to get through it?
Yeah. Well, to me, it's a challenge between hard good and easy good. I think of finding answers that are healthy as sort of the hard good path. They take time. They take a willingness to admit your problems. And these are things like carving out time for meaningful connections, or physical exercise, or doing things that legitimately give you joy, that feel like selfish, or giving yourself permission to be like, look, I'm not doing anything today because I'm in a really bad spot and I need to recharge my batteries. All of those things are hard good. The easy good stuff is cheesecake and a 6-pack of beer and, going out with your friends and actually not talking about anything except for whatever is on TV in front of you, because you're all too scared to really connect about what matters. So we can just scream about the Bills or the Chiefs or whoever you care about. That stuff is easy good. It does not take effort beyond turning the ignition in your car and putting some stuff on your credit card. So it's actually like counterintuitive, this whole like pull yourself up by your bootstraps thing. People say like, oh yeah, just do it. And just do it is hard. It's done in these little incremental pieces. So, to answer your question of like, what do? I try. I don't really have a clean answer.
But like, how do you make yourself do the hard, good things? Like, you clearly have a busy life. So like, do you schedule exercise? Like, how do you implement it?
Look, let me just say that if I had it all figured out, I'd be a millionaire, because I definitely don't. And, I'd find some way to
That's why you're here.
Like market that. I don't.
So we can talk about not having it together.
Yeah. I honestly, Robin, I don't think there is an easy answer. So like some days I do fine. And there's a couple of days in a row that are strung together, and you start sort of feeling like the clouds start clearing a little bit. And then some days everything just rushes back in and for no rhyme or reason. And, the thing that sometimes helps me when I'm feeling that way is thinking about that quote that Thich Nhat Hanh said, which I'm like sort of a closeted Buddhist. He said this whole idea that, when it rains, it pours is not so. That's this sort of extreme way of thinking of things. Instead of think of it this way, that clouds like company, that sometimes, when one thing isn't going well, it can kind of impact these other things. So for me, one of my real strategies is trying to just be mindful about when you are feeling bad. Instead of just being like, whatever, fuck it, I'm feeling bad, I'm going to plow through it. Instead, it's like, okay, I'm starting to feel bad. Like, what's going on? Let's pause for a moment in the midst of this and sort of mindfully consider the stimuli. All right, so if I drink 4 beers on a Friday night, I'm going to wake up on Saturday with a bit of a headache. And then unpacking the dishwasher is going to suck. Unpacking the dishwasher always sucks in a first world kind of sad way. But it's going to suck more if you've got a bit of a hangover. And then you're going to like not be as cool to your kids. You're not going to want to exercise. So like, is the stimuli worth it? Or is the hard good like, I'm just going to sit down and chill with my family tonight? Or more than likely not with my family now that my kids are teenagers. But like my wife, we'll sit down and do that. And that might be not as instantly rewarding, but it's going to pay dividends down the road. So really, it's just a challenge of being mindful, which, I don't want to come off like I've got it figured out because I definitely don't. I would say like at least half of the time I'm not mindful about stuff, but trying to be mindful about the stimuli that's coming at you, that's what the joy of writing is like you have to be immersed in the exercise. You cannot half-ass putting your ideas down there and have it be anything worth reading.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love activities where I'm taken away. Like I've gotten really, really into tennis. And when I'm playing, I'm not thinking about anything other than like improving my forehand. I can't think of any other part of my life where I am not thinking or stressing or, worrying or calculating or, like running some numbers or figures or thoughts in my head.
Right.
I just am thinking about like, here comes a forehand, that you need to not hit it so close to your body. Try to do that. Like, and that's it. And it's like I do find those moments to be helpful. And then I find that there's like an energy that comes after the rest of my day goes right, generally speaking.
I feel like we're circling around like 2 different issues. Like there's this one issue that is like the tools and the like getting yourself through the feelings of the depression and the horribleness of the world. And then it sounds like there's a separate issue that is almost like an inability to talk about the problems. Like a lack of like community in the problems, a hard time being able to like just sit down with a friend and be like, shit is hard. What are your like hard goods and easy goods? Or what are your hard goods for you having community and support and relationships and conversations? Because surely it can't be writing a book because that is too fucking hard.
No. Well, I have a good friend who he has a son the same age as my son. And, in a lot of ways, we've raised our kids together. He lives in this community. And we were lucky enough to kind of stumble into a friendship through like youth sports. Our kids were involved in youth sports. And so we'd stand on the sideline and found out we had some things in common. And you just start piecing together a friendship. And before you know it, you're talking about the scary doctor appointment that you're going to have. And I'm crying to him, talking about trying to figure out how to pay for my kids' college. And that does not happen like ramen noodles. It isn't just instant, It's concerted effort, a willingness to be vulnerable. I'm terrified to have this conversation. Okay. Like to sit down beforehand, like my hands were sweaty. I'm nervous about talking about this stuff.
You're doing great though. You're doing
Thanks. Great. But the only way to make any sort of progress is to be honest about it.
Yeah.
And the reason why hard good is because it's hard. Like you have to be willing to commit to achieving those sort of lasting moments of peace. And even then it might not work. So, Emerson's right when he says the ends pre-exist in the means, like where you end up is a product of how you travel. That's what I'm talking about. It needs to be like a mindful daily practice of like, all right, I'm seeking meaning here. I'm not just seeking the sugar high of this world. So here's where it's super challenging, right? Because the world tells you that the instant sugar high is where it's at. These quick connections is what matters.
Also, it's difficult. It's difficult to maintain that over time. You know, like on my other podcast, Dear Headspace, I host with meditation teachers. And these are people who practice mindfulness every day, teach mindfulness, coach, like go to retreats, and they still struggle and have their days. And it's like, I think that what we're kind of talking about is normalizing getting back on the horse. Like your finish line thinking, if we look at it like there's an end here in sight, like I'm going to be fixed next week. If we approach it like that, that's never going to happen. If we were able to be perfect, someone would have done it already. No one has done it. No one can do it. It's not possible. But we can get up and start a new day. I mean, that's what I tell myself. But I do think that, like, for our listeners, we do have to acknowledge, though, that we are talking about, like, you know, recurring depression or big feelings. And, you know, I want people to know, like, yes, it's okay to talk about it. Yes, you should have a mindful approach. Yes, you should do all that. But yes, you should see a therapist. Yes, you should consider meds if that's helpful for you. Like, I had a lot of judgment about meds for a lot of years because I was raised very much like bootstrappy. And I just no longer feel that way. I think it's important to speak to someone. So I just wanted to say that because we haven't talked at all about that.
No.
Except for you mentioned you're in therapy.
Well, I will say that the woman that I first met with when I went on leave, I owe her a ton. Because when I sat down with her, I'm like, look, I'm on leave. I got these 3 months. This is how I'm going to get fixed. You know, here's my calendar. This is the shit I'm going to do. I'm going to go to yoga. I'm going to learn how to play the guitar. I'm going to get back in shape. You know, this is what, so like, let's figure this out. And she was like, can I see that, please? You know, and like took the calendar from me and basically called me on my bullshit. She was like, look, this is going to be a thing that needs to take place. So if I can tell just one story from that first spring, you know, I did some crazy stuff when I was feeling that way. Like I installed an outdoor shower in my backyard because I remember being on vacation when I was a kid and taking a shower out on Cape Cod, you know, these outdoor showers. And being like, feel at peace. So I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to buy an outdoor shower kit and install that. So I did. And, you know, I started listening to Headspace, this app where, you know, you meditate with this nice guy with a British accent, you know, is going to get you all in this Zen place. And so I was doing this stuff. So beautiful spring day. I'm sitting on my back porch. I just taken this outdoor shower. I had exercise. I'm checking all these boxes. I'm listening to Headspace, and then my phone buzzes and it's this, you know, news update. And I'm like, I'm in a good spot. I can digest the news today. And then it was like this exit ramp from the highway of peace that I was driving on. The world just came knocking on the door. And then I'm like, no, I'm going to put the phone down and get back to meditating. So I'm back to meditating. And the whole time I'm sitting there, I'm just thinking about the news story, right? And I'm like, I cannot shut this voice off. And I think that it's super important to forgive yourself for those moments. I mean, when you jump in a pool, you are not surprised that you are wet. We are living in deeply fucked up times. It's okay to feel that way when you are in that time. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. Like you're living through a really challenging time. So to feel really challenged in that time, I think makes lots of sense. You know, so like people I don't think are gentle enough with themselves about that, or at least to acknowledge like the reason why I'm feeling like there is no hope is because there legitimately is not a lot of hope, you know? Yeah. So like, it's okay to sort of recognize that. I think there's strength and courage in saying, all right, this is really screwed up. How are we going to get through it together?
I do think that one of the tools in the tool basket is shutting down media and social media. 100%. I white knuckled my way through the first 4 years of Trump and I watched incessantly the news, and it was really bad for me. Mm-hmm. And it was compulsive, and I couldn't stop because I thought we were all going to die. But here's the thing. When I can look back on it now, what I can say is that those 4 years, I just kind of lost them. We didn't all die. It was horrible, but we didn't all die. And all that time I lost because I was obsessing. And so if that is God forbid what happens in 2024, I've already made a commitment that I'm not going to watch. I'm going to participate in whatever way I can make some change, but I'm not going to watch because I know what that will do to me. And it's like, I do think that that's something that it's not just about the politics, about whatever, like understanding your triggers, whatever the things are. Like you were describing the most perfect moment. Like you thought of a thing that used to make you happy. You were like, we can afford this. I'm putting this in. And then you were meditating. You were in all the spaces. And then you just were like, I'm just going to just check the news. And it sent you out immediately. And I think we have to be so aware of those things. And we have to be really I think knowing your triggers is important. And I think journaling is a really great, skill to help with that. Because sometimes it's, like I said earlier, like if I'm in the problem, it's a soup. It feels like a soup and I can't tell you what's happening or whatever. It all feels hot.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. It's easier said than done, because I think the world just is really screaming at us all the time. And it was weird during those first 4 years. There was like this compulsion as if like me reading this opinion piece today and sharing it with 5 people is somehow going to change what's happening. So it was like I felt this more responsibility to live in this unfolding tragedy.
I felt like I had to be educated.
Right.
But now I can see, though, that it wasn't education. It was just a bunch of people in a room sitting around going, this is fucked up, right?
Yeah.
And that's all we were doing for 4 years.
Right.
And that was not helpful in any way to anyone except the media who made a shit ton of money.
No, yeah.
Like it was not helpful to us.
Those are things that you do have power over, right? Like turning off the phone and putting it down is in and of itself not a challenging thing. Like pushing a button and putting something down and walking away is not hard to do. So if you can separate the sort of compulsive mentality from it, then you're like, okay, yeah, but it has to become a habit. You have to first recognize that you matter, right? Like it's worth it to save me to do that.
That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. And especially hearing you say about your little sweaty palms, like to be nervous and to come here with us and to talk at this level. We said a lot of things about your journey and you said so many things. So like probably way smarter than I would have said them because you were like quoting literature and shit. But I just want to highlight a couple of the things that like on your journey, like you saw big things. Like when it was dark, you were like, I know these big reconnection things help me. You did that. Like solo things like writing or things that take you away. You were doing that. You sought treatment with a therapist. You continued to do mindfulness work, and you're being kind and gentle with yourself about the fact that like tomorrow might be a hard day and a bunch of clouds might come in. And I just want to say like that makes me very proud of you. It's not an easy struggle. And there are so many people, so many of us out here who struggle and who are just like, it's a dark day. And it's like, I think what you're saying to them is just like, be gentle, be kind, but just keep going. And I think that that's an important message. So I'm very thankful that you took the time out and that you were willing to put yourself out there and share of yourself in this way, because I think it's important for many, many people.
Well, thank you for saying that. I really believe that we're all in this together.
So that was a lovely discussion with Matt. And at the end, we had already hit stop on the record button when Matt was like, oh, hey, I do actually have one more important moment. And we all yelled, oh my God, hit record again. And I just thought that this little story from Matt is a lovely and fitting way to end this episode. So here's Matt.
So when we were driving to Los Angeles on the trip, it was a long drive. And my son, Max, who was 10 at the time, was, every parent who's ever been on a road trip knows this question is like, are we there yet? And he just kept asking over and over and over again. So anyway, I flipped out and I was like, Max, this is there. Like, this is where we're going. And we were stuck in a traffic jam. He's like, I thought we were going to California. We're in a traffic jam? I'm like, no, this moment, buddy. Like, this is what it's about. Like, the guy in the car next to us, we're never going to see that guy again, Like, being present. And then the guy rolls his window down. He's like, what are you fucking looking at? And I was like, I was talking to my kid about beauty, man. And, but But I was trying to explain how, like, if you can find a way to, like, be present, man, that is 3/4 of the battle of just like being, okay, I'm just in this moment. I'm not at the grocery store or dealing with the stupid news situation. And it perhaps went over my 10-year-old's head, but it became this thing that, was kind of this family mantra. Like, hey, man, this is there. Just remember, this is there. Like, I'm not shooting for some sort of distant destination. I'll be happy when I get there. This is there.
Whew, this is there. I absolutely love that phrase. And I am planning on saying that to myself whenever I find myself, trying to get someplace else like I do. So watch out, folks. I got a new mantra. Thanks for that, Matt. And also, I want to be serious and say thank you so much for your bravery in sharing your story. Everybody, just go out right now and pick up a copy of Matt's books. The links are in the show notes, folks. Go get it. For more Robin, and you may need that, you probably don't need it, but if you do, you can follow me at Real Rob Hops on all the platforms, all the socials, as the kids today say. Well Adjusting is an Edit Audio original series. It's exec produced by Steph Colburn and Robin Hopkins. Our producer and editor is Maria Passingham, and our production manager is Kathleen Speckert. Thank you to the entire Edit Audio team and to you for listening. Oh, hey, before you take out those AirPods, this show is just for entertainment. If you are in need of help, please, please, please reach out to a professional. Go ahead and get that help. You deserve it.